The shooting death of a Minneapolis woman continues to divide political leaders in the United States today. Renee Good was killed on Wednesday by an immigration enforcement agent. Her death set off protests and a war of words over whether the agent was justified in shooting her. Today, people in Minneapolis held a moment of silence at the spot where Good died 2 days ago. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz declared this a day of unity in his state as he tried to calm tensions and prevent more violence. But there is still plenty of anger. Earlier today, the mayor of Minneapolis doubled down on his calls for the ICE federal agency to leave the city.
They are clearly driving crime up. Up until last night, we hadn't had any shootings in this city other than ICE. Our city is safe. Our city is welcoming. They are making it less so. And so it is a massive issue that they continue to exert their presence in Minneapolis City. And so bad for business, bad for safety, bad for unity, bad for democracy, and bad for this republic. We want them out.
Minnesota's Attorney General is demanding that the FBI includes state agencies in the shooting investigation. Yesterday, the FBI cut them off, sparking outrage from state and city leaders. Keith Ellison says this investigation must be handled carefully and with transparency.
There's a lot of people who have a very big interest in this case, including the officers involved. They have an important interest. The fact is we have an interest as state prosecutors, which is what we both are, in fairness and transparency, and to the degree that it's possible to set forth a process which, when it's over, fair-minded people can say, well, as good and just of a job that could be done was done.
Minnesota's Attorney General is also asking residents with any information or evidence to submit them through an online portal. 2 U.S. senators from Minnesota are also calling on the Department of Justice to work with local authorities. Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith say they are seriously concerned with the way the investigation is unfolding. Part of their statement reads, "It is critical there be a thorough, objective, and impartial investigation that requires full cooperation with state investigators and local authorities." They go on to say the administration's decision raises serious questions about its objectivity, particularly after administration officials have made statements that conflict with the video and other evidence that has already become public. Therefore, we strongly urge you to reverse your decision and coordinate with state and local officials. The CBC's Katie Nicholson is in Minneapolis for us today. She was at a federal building earlier that has been the site of large protests, and now she's at a growing memorial at the scene where Renee Good was killed on Wednesday.
This here is the spot where Renee Nicole Good was killed on Wednesday. The 37-year-old mother remembered today with a moment of silence here in Minnesota. The Governor Tim Walz actually declared today one of unity for the state. He's urging people to stop and reflect about what is good in this nation and to reach out and help one another, help a neighbor. All of this sort of an effort to try and tamp down the tensions that have been running sky high in the state since this incident occurred on Wednesday when an ICE agent opened fire on a U.S. citizen in a car here on this street. We were out at the Whipple building earlier today. That is a staging area for ICE as a part of their big surge here in the Twin Cities, and spoke to a couple of protesters there. It was fairly calm there for a bit, and then as we were there, we saw a crane start moving crowd control blocks, cement blocks into place. A couple of protesters started pushing back on the blocks as they were being put in place. At one point, one of them even sat on the blocks, but certainly we didn't see the type of clash with ICE agents that we saw on that site yesterday. Nonetheless, people are concerned. So far, there have been respectful but very loud protests here every night. I spoke to 2 people who were protesting today outside the Whipple building about their concerns, particularly because there is a potential here that the National Guard may be deployed if those tensions boil over the next 24, 48 hours. Here's a little of what they had to say.
But anytime you introduce a militarized force, it ups the tension. And I don't think what we need right now is more people in tactical gear, with weapons, in vehicles where we can't see them, with masks on their face where we can't see them. So if he wants to deploy the National Guard, he can, but I think that he and his administration really need to be careful how they do that.
That's always a risk. I think I'm going back to the Minnesota nice. Minnesota, we will try to be nice, but there's a point where I think what's going to happen in the future is probably mass protests across the country and say this is not good. And when people come out in mass, that changes the way governments react to strong public opinion.
Now, of course, one of the reasons there are so many tensions here in the city is because of how the investigation into what happened is unfolding. Initially, it was supposed to be a sort of a joint investigation between the state and the federal authorities. State authorities have said yesterday that they're pushed out of the investigation process. Today, community leaders pushed again for being allowed to have state investigators also examine the incident and what happened. Here's Mayor Jacob Fry.
Our ask is to embrace the truth. Our ask is to include the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in this process because we in Minneapolis want a fair investigation. Is it deeply concerning that this administration from the very get-go is drawing the conclusion that they may ultimately come to? Of course it is. And if you got nothing to hide from, then don't hide from it. Include local experts in the process. We got nothing to hide from here. All we want in Minneapolis is justice and the truth.
Now, as I said, there have been protests every night since this happened, more planned for tonight and through the weekend. The next 24 to 48 hours could be crucial as to which way this goes. So much of what the protesters are asking for is for ICE to sort of wind down its presence here. But so far, the Trump administration, the response has been to actually bring in 100 more agents over the next little while. And that is not going over well here. In fact, the comedian John Mulaney was supposed to have shows here through the weekend. He decided to postpone those, citing safety concerns. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Minneapolis.
Here's a live look of Minneapolis this hour. Some students there have walked out in protest of the fatal shooting of a woman by a federal immigration enforcement agent. Schools are canceled across the city due to safety concerns. We'll bring you the latest as it develops.